All right, hello and welcome to today's Get in Tune. Um, we're just going to get started and start with the intro like normal, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. All right, hello and welcome to today's Get in Tune. I'm Michael Grassia, and I think we have a really fun day planned today. It's inspired by my guest for my interview tomorrow night, Tuesday, June 16th, at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be interviewing Jay Piscopo, who is an amazingly talented artist, but he's a lover of public domain characters. So this week I wanted to focus on public domain. So why is public domain important to us? Well, a lot of stuff is in public domain. When we create comics, we refer to comics as modern mythology. Hello, Alex. Thanks for the comment there. When we look at, like I said, public domain or mainstream comics, I'm talking characters like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Captain America, any of them. That's what's known as modern mythology. Comics are a way of telling stories for the most part about heroes. When we think about what's popular are superheroes, right? But we can have characters that aren't superheroes that make us laugh and do things. But anyway, it's all modern mythology. We're telling stories. And if we go back, centuries, thousands of years, we heard stories of characters like Hercules, or Odysseus, who were these human beings that, well, Hercules is half god, son of Zeus and son of a mortal. And Odysseus was favored by some of the gods, and they were able to do things normal human people couldn't do. We look at characters like Thor. He's a god, right? God of thunder from Norse mythology. So you can go into all these different myths and see stories, and because they're myths, no one owns the rights to them. So if you wanted to do a story about Hercules, you could do a Hercules story. You can use him as a character. You just couldn't do the Disney Hercules. You see, when Disney creates a story, and it's based on a character like Aladdin, who, by the way, is also a public domain character, they make it their own. They copyright it. They do all the stuff they need to do so it's protected, and no one can use Disney's version of that character. But there's no reason you can't use your own Aladdin, your own Hercules, your own Thor. It just can't look like Disney's Aladdin, Marvel's Thor, or even Marvel's Hercules. It's just that's their character. So, we can go into anything. King Arthur from the Arthurian legend, which comes from the Celtic mythology in England and stuff. You can use him. Characters like Dracula and Frankenstein's monster and the Invisible Man and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and characters like that, all public domain. So if you want to tell a story, it's it's fun too. Because there's so much history to these characters. They have books about them. You can read about them. The only character that of the monsters, if you will, that doesn't have an actual story is the Wolfman. The Wolfman didn't have a book, so you could do a werewolf story. There's no, it's just different myths about werewolves that they based that movie upon. So that's the cool thing about public domain. In the last couple of years, we got Sherlock Holmes. So if you want to do a detective story, you can do Sherlock Holmes, but you don't have to put him in the time period Sherlock is accustomed to. Do Sherlock Holmes in the 31st century. you know, and what is Sherlock Holmes in the sci-fi future, and you know, or what if Sherlock Holmes time traveled? I don't know. You could do different things like that. So there's a lot of websites out there that allow you the ability to sorry, I'm just getting something together here, that allow you to find out what is public domain. Now, a lot of people love superheroes. So I'm going to show you something superhero based in a moment. Let's move to the other screen. Now, this right here is the American Crusader. Sorry, excuse me. The American Crusader is a character from, you know, like the 50s, I believe. Oh, 40s. 1941 was his first appearance. But after Superman came out, they, you know, characters and superheroes were all coming out. Everyone was trying to make superhero comics because Superman hit it big and they all wanted to make it big just like them. So there were tons and tons of characters that had very similar powers. You know, if we read here, he used the, where is it here? He had the powers of strength, flight, and invulnerability. 3 of Superman's powers, you know? He didn't have the X-ray vision or anything like that. And there's lots of stuff here. Here's a guy, Spy Smasher, who had no powers but used his smarts and his gyro sub, which is a device he had, which combines the functions of an aeroplane, an autogyro, speedboat, and submarine. So he had a really cool ship. All right. This one here, Daredevil. Not the Daredevil of Marvel Comics, but I believe they called him the Daring Daredevil. And he wore this split costume, circus performer type of costume here. And he had a boomerang as his choice of weapon. Miss Fury. She's basically Catwoman for the most part, with a cape, but good, you know. You know, it says here, where was I reading? Was it down here? So powers and abilities. She was a skilled athlete, acrobat, climber, and fighter. She was also a smart amateur detective and very wealthy, so she had some of, you know, Batman characteristics in there. Her panther suit was enchanted by a witch doctor and also had claws. She sometimes used the spiked heels on her costume as weapons, and in addition using a whip. You know, one of my favorites here, the Green Llama. The Green Llama has superhuman strength, is nearly invulnerable, and can levitate and summon ghosts to aid him. So he's kind of got this spiritual thing about me, and I always like mystical characters. Here's one, the Owl. He's very much a Batman style character, who had gadgets, you know, and there was also Miss Owl. This one I found out because I go on this page. It's public. It's pdsh.fandom.com, and this guy here, you know, Reuben was a young orphan who ran away from the orphanage. He hid out in an old castle, but discovered it was his ancestors' home. His ancestors still haunted the castle as ghosts, all sharing the same name as their descendant, and wanted to help him. Reuben later became a cub reporter for the Daily Sun, so very much like Clark Kent there. You know, he was the influence for a lot. So the abilities and the powers, the ghosts gave him powers they possessed in life, such as strength, wisdom, speed, invulnerability, and courage. Very much like Captain Marvel, who you guys know as Shazam. And all he needed to do to use these powers was call out, "Hey, Rube!" And he would transform into Red Rube, a fully grown hero. So he was a kid who transformed into a superhero and had all these other abilities. Blackout. I don't know much about Blackout here. I never really read him. I just liked his costume design. Moon Girl. Moon Girl is, she has superhuman strength, owns the Moonstone, which makes her superior to any man, and is an invincible in battle, and has telepathy controlled moonship plane. So a telepathically controlled moonship plane. So kind of a Wonder Woman type. Um, you know, let's see. Another great one here, Amazing Man. So Amazing Man had the power of super strength, invulnerability, and the ability to make himself disappear into a green vapor. It is the last power. Sometimes it's called the Green Mist. Another fantastic character, but you can see the strength and the invulnerability, sometimes flight, all Superman kind of related characters. But these are the characters that didn't really hit big and survive the superhero world of comics. Dynamic Man. Dynamic Man could fly, was strong enough to lift a car, and was invulnerable to bullets and acid. And the first origin had above average intelligence by virtue of being an android. So this character was an android. He wasn't even a real person there. What do we got coming up here? Captain Freedom. The reason I picked Captain Freedom is because, one, I've always kind of liked the American characters like Captain America, the Shield, characters like them. But, what I liked about this one was when I was a kid, maybe 13, 14 years old, and I started getting into superheroes, I created a character called Captain Freedom even before I knew that he was a public domain character. So I'll get to your question in a moment, Alex. So when I found out Captain Freedom, I had to look him up, and I found out this was pretty cool. And now, because he's public domain, I may want to take some of the stories that I wrote as a young kid and, polish them now for my, improved storytelling skills. But maybe use something like this and maybe change his costume a bit so that has a bit of what I created mixed in with here. Who are we coming up to next? Rocketman. Now, I wanted to include Rocketman for a reason. He's just a guy with a jetpack. That's really it. No powers. He could fly with a jetpack. And that story's been used so often. Back in, I believe it was the 40s, there was a movie serial about a character called Rocketman that's different from this one, but he's also in the public domain. So King of the Rocketmen, and here's a better picture of him here. So you can see, now let's go, Rocketman, okay, that's not gonna load up. But you can see here that he's just got this helmet and he's got a jetpack and he's, leather jacket kind of thing. And it's really inspiring because people, I forget the author's name. I had it on top of my head before I did this. But here's a little Funko Pop of one of my favorite comic book and movie characters, the Rocketeer. He started off as a comic book, but it's these type of characters, Rocketman and these public domain stuff, that influenced these type of stories. And to this day, Rocketeer is one of my favorite movies. I enjoyed the comic. I don't know if they still do it or create specials on it, but I've always enjoyed the Rocketeer. And he has that public domain retro feel, which I love in my stories. Now, Alex is do I know a free app online to read comics? Well, there's a couple. Number one, you can always go to comics.com, and that's comic strips like Garfield and things like that. Tons and tons of comics there. But they're all strip stuff. Then you got Webtoon, which you can look around and find, great stuff for kids. It's a very popular site these days. There's one, and I can't remember, but I can look it up and maybe share it in the comments when I can find it. It shows you a lot of public domain comics that you can read for free. So let's get drawing. Let's talk about some more public domain, but let's really get drawing. Let's go to Photoshop here. Sorry, I needed a sip of water there. So let's maybe draw some of these characters and maybe do an update on them if we want to. So let's start, and again, I'm probably going to go a little more cartoony because that's my style. But let's get a generic head in here for a male superhero, right? And maybe I'll really kind of go with that Batman the Animated Series style that I draw in sometimes. Actually, you know what? I don't like this. I'm just going to go straight into my cartoony style here. Similar, but a little different. So right now we're just going to keep it simple, and the next one we'll do some action poses on. All right, so I got this generic hero character here. And he can really be anybody at the moment. Sorry, my cat's screaming outside the room. I don't know if you can hear it. It's just distracting me. I feel bad when I can't let him into my studio. But if I did, he would be jumping around and interfering with the stream at the moment. So I can make this any public domain character I want. This is a great pose for a character like a mythological character like Hercules or King Arthur. You know, you could put him in a suit of armor and all of a sudden it's King Arthur. Robin Hood is a public domain character, so you could put him, you know, in that Robin Hood style clothing, a tunic or something, and all of a sudden, boom, it's Robin Hood, right? So, square out his jaw there. So who am I going to make this? Well, we're talking a lot about superheroes, and if I look at the thing I was looking at before, let me bring that up again. So here, and let's go to maybe, should I do Amazing Man? Let's do Amazing Man. So what I'm going to do for myself is I like to just drag sometimes the images, if I can, straight into my program. So I know there it is, and I have a reference guide on the character, right? Now, it doesn't mean I need to copy him 100%. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do the body style on a different layer. So his costuming, this way I can always reuse this body. So he doesn't wear a mask, right? And I'm going to give him a straight nose. You know, superheroes, one of the things about them is that they all kind of have perfect features. So perfectly square jaws, perfectly straight nose. You know, maybe a nice little cleft in his chin there. Actually, I don't like that eye. That's a little, I don't want to go for that style right now. All right, I think I'm going to have to open the door to my studio to let my cat in. So give me 1 second, please. It's crying a little too much. Come on in. Okay. And he's got this symbol here, which I kind of like. You know, it's this little badge. And if you hear my cat now, hope he's not too distracting. He just needs to be petted, that's it. There you go, Sesame. All right. And it's kind of thick here, kind of goes in. And he's got his A. And then he's got his straps. And these go down to his belt. And he's got his belt buckle. And he's got his, I'll do underwear, and I'm just going to give him some boots. All right. And there's obviously some, you know, like, what would they call these? Rivets, maybe? All right. Okay. And his hair, and instead of doing his hair going back like that, I think I'll give him kind of a cleaner haircut. You see? And there's my amazing man. And he's got these little kind of shapes around here too. It looks like that's more circular right there. That's amazing, man. And now that once we got, and I'm going to give him a little piece like that. Now that I got him in my initial design, I can now think about putting him in action poses. And remember what I said in previous streams, you know, this line of action really helps us out. You know, we can curve the body into different things, into different positions, as long as we know where the body bends. Now, is this amazing man, or is this maybe the daring? Was it daring or the death-defying? I forget what it was. Daredevil, right? So I got this body type here. He's getting ready to get into action, and if we go back and look, and I don't need the image up, but just to show you, his costume divides in half, right? And he's got his boomerang right there. So let's split it down. Right, these are spiky here. Whoa, sorry. Sesame, move. Sorry, he's just now jumping around. Give me 1 second, guys. I do apologize. I know what he wants. Just take it. He wants my chair, guys. He likes to sit in my chair. I guess he left. I do apologize. I'll leave the door open. I got myself a folding chair just in case this happens again. It's kind of part of my life here. While my cat's in my studio. I love him a lot, but he really, you know, he will meow until I get out of my chair. And then I sit in a folding chair and he falls asleep all nice and comfy. And then let's erase what we don't need so it's not confusing to you guys. I think he wears short gloves in his costume. But we can put the boomerang in his hand there. There we go. Now I got Daredevil. Why don't we add one of the female characters into it? Oh my god. I'm sorry. Again, my cat. He comes in and out. Just take the chair. Oh, there you go. Sit right there. Okay. Now, here, I'm going to show you guys something. No, stay. There's my cat coming in to annoy me. So I've given him my chair so he can sit down comfortably, and I can pet him with my left hand while I draw with my right hand. Life's great, right, guys? Come on. There we go. Let's go. So I'm going to remove that picture of Amazing Man, and I'm going to put in now a female. And I think I was going to do... Who did I say I was going to do? Get back down, Sesame. Miss Fury, that's who I wanted to do. So, like I said, she's basically a Catwoman type. You can give her a cape, and she has claws. So let's think about a female's head, right? I'm going to puff out the cheek a little bit to add some kind of cuteness to her. And give her a little bit of a neck here. And remember, whatever shoulder's up, that opposite hip is up. So I'm going to have her kind of like she's leaping in. So what I want to do is I think I'm going to erase up here. Why isn't my eraser getting bigger? Oh, my caps lock's on. That's why. So if this is her hip and her body is lean, you know what? We're just going to start her over from scratch. I like to start with the head. That kind of helps me out. All right. So this leg, we won't see everything on. This leg, we will. Okay. So she's tilted back here. She's got her cat suit on. Whoa. Sorry, guys. My cat just got up again. So come over here. Don't. Sorry, I don't want to messing up the computer. There you go. If you guys have pets, you understand currently what I'm going through, right? Mostly cats, you'll understand. Here he goes again. Probably should have just let him cry outside, right? This is the problem when you have a heart. And you love your pets. And right now he's adding his scent to my Cintiq. And I'm going to give him a cape, and the cape's going to come out. Ooh, okay. No. Sorry. Oh, man. Give me 1 second, guys. My cat's now trying to get behind my laptop, which might mess things up for me. Okay. And so, yeah. Here are 3 public domain style characters. Hold on 1 second. So, all right. So I got 3 public domain characters there, right? Amazing Man, Daredevil, and Miss Fury. Now remember, this isn't Marvel's Daredevil. This isn't Matt Murdock. He's not a blind lawyer. It's, and I forget the character's name. But yeah, now there was a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. It was called The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie. I really enjoyed it. It came out, I don't even know how many years ago. It's based on a comic book of the same name. And what's interesting about it is it was it uses public domain characters. Sorry. So yeah, it uses public domain characters. Sorry, I was just looking for something. And you know, if you read the comic, the movie isn't so great. And I'm not gonna lie, I read the comic. I do enjoy the comic. There were things about the movie that I didn't like, but it was one of my favorite comic book movie adaptions, you know, to film, like a comic book adaptation to film. You know, it had a decent cast in there, but it used characters like Alan Quartermain, who's a great hunter, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Invisible Man, Captain Nemo. So, and who's it? Mina from the Dracula stories. So having characters like that, like this is one of the other things I love about public domain. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? It could be very cartoony. Like here's a Dr. Jekyll, and you know he's going to be this very nice, you know, looking man here. You know, maybe he wears glasses, right? He's got his top hat on. Just from the era, it's kind of this Victorian, almost style type of character, right? He's kind of little skinny, kind of geeky, nerdy type of character. He's a scientist, right? But he made a potion, and with this potion, it's bubbling up. There it goes. When he drinks that, he turns into an evil, or you know, his darker half, which could be anything. You know, could be up like that, and look at him, make him a giant, right? Or let's go with something a little bit more like this, almost very Hulk-like, right? I mean, you could have a different story for him, and you know, my Dr. Jekyll, he kind of is a hunched over character. The way I envision Dr. Jekyll is he's much more this kind of fiendish beast, you know, in the sense where he's kind of just kind of dirty and messy, and His hat is now kind of crooked, and maybe he's got some hair and he's hunched over. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. I'm just watching my cat here, making sure he doesn't screw nothing up. And maybe he has a cane that he will, but it's more of a walking stick, you know. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Once again, my cat. Give me 1 second. I do have to apologize. Sesame, stop. I'm about to get a spray bottle. I don't like doing that to him. But, so, you know, this is Dr. and Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. A really quick sketch of them, right? But Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was the inspiration for the Hulk. The Incredible Hulk is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Jeez. So, you know, think about that. You know, when we look at a character like King Arthur, right? We all know who King Arthur is. And I'm going to apologize for my cutoff in a moment here. Okay, I'm very cut off right now because the way my cat is behind my laptop. So let me move back here. So we all know who King Arthur is. King Arthur was a boy who was, you know, kind of hidden at birth, away from the evils of the world, and then was found. He pulled the magic sword from the stone, right? He pulled Excalibur from the stone. That's the story. And he had a mentor named Merlin. Now, there's some different versions, but that's the generic one that everybody has. But can you see Luke Skywalker in that? Here's a boy who was hidden away from his evil father, who then ended up getting a magic sword, the lightsaber. Okay, and then he has a mentor who's kind of this wizard-like mentor who is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then goes off to fight evil, just like King Arthur. So, you know, these characters can inspire and have inspired countless stories, one after the other. You know? Sorry, I'm just watching my cat, seeing what he's doing again. It makes it a little difficult sometimes here. Come over here. Awesome. Thank you. Now my laptop may not have to hover over the edge here. So, what was I going to say? So, you know, you got King Arthur. That's a character. And I don't know if you can see behind me, but there's a Darth Vader picture. You can see a Darth Vader head if I raise my finger. How high? Over there, and bring it back, and right behind me, right there is a Darth Vader head. If you go up and over, there's a scene from Empire Strikes Back. It's the scene where Vader tells Luke that he's his father, and it's signed by James Earl Jones, who was the voice of Darth Vader. So any of these stories that I find, most stories I find inspiring and that I love, have these public domain characters in them, or inspired by public domain characters and this mythology and fantasy. You know, I'm going to show you guys something from my bookshelf over here. Give me 1 second. All right. Let's get this out here. Do this one. I'll get this. This is a little more kid-friendly. Not that the other book isn't. But Dungeons and Dragons, the Dungeonology. So this is a book I use when I want to talk to kids about D&D. Right? And you can learn about weapons and all this stuff in here. It's a great book. Okay. I truly love this book. But, you know, even before that, we had, is it over there? Should be around the same area. There it is. Give me 1 second again. Sorry, just grabbing a few while I'm here so I don't have to get up again. All right. So, but a lot of what comes from Dungeons and Dragons all started with this. Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, D&D is very based in this fantasy world that Tolkien created. Although certain things, like remember we were talking about public domain, we can't use hobbits. Hobbits is owned by Tolkien, but we can call them halflings. So if you ever play a game like D&D and you use a halfling, you're basically using a hobbit, But because of the stuff that I love, things that inspire me. This is a book I got. I think it was from Barnes and Noble. Yeah, it's a Barnes and Noble book I got many years ago, and I love reading it. But it's called Legends of the World. So I could read about Greek mythology. I could read about Celtic mythology. I can read about stuff from India, Japan, China, the Middle East. It's all it's all in here. I mean, not every single one, but important ones and main ones, all right in here. So this is a book I like to go to. Again, I love Tolkien, who created Lord of the Rings. This here is an atlas of Tolkien. So this explores the geography and the lands and stuff. So really interesting stuff in here. But that's not all. This is called Beowulf and Other Old English Poems. So a lot of fantasy, a lot of different things in here. For those who don't know Beowulf, he was a great warrior. Fought against the Grendel, this evil monster. And what I love about the idea of the Grendel, and makes it fun, and it is a public domain story because this is one of the Beowulf is so old they don't even know who wrote it. The Grendel isn't actually described in the story. There's little hints and things, but you can make the Grendel look like anything because they tell you nothing about Grendel. So to some it's a dragon, to some it's some other kind of monster, to others it's like this monstrous human being. It's your imagination. It's whatever you read it as. Now I know they've made some movies on it, some animated, some live action. And the Grendel is seen, but that's somebody else's imagination in there. So I like to use my own imagination when I read that. I read a lot of stuff on mythology. It's inspiring. The public domain is just filled with so many characters. You think of things like fairy tale characters, Cinderella, Snow White. Again, don't use Disney because Disney's is their version. But you can use and do a story on Snow White and Cinderella. You could do a story about, I'm trying to think of, like I said, Aladdin. You can't use Peter Pan though. Unfortunately, Peter Pan is not public domain. Peter Pan is owned by the estate that what is it? It was when the creator died, he willed it to an orphanage. So there's a board that has to approve anything made with Peter Pan in there. But Disney had that done, so Disney can make their own Peter Pan stories, with their character, but they can't make, they can't do another version. There was actually a great cartoon when I was a kid called Peter Pan and the Pirates. Loved it. My favorite interpretation of Peter Pan in animated form. What else? Alice in Wonderland, Hansel and Gretel. All those fairy tales and folk tales and things. even come to American, folk tales. There's, you can look up Native American stuff, and there's some really, really cool stuff there. But think like the story of Johnny Appleseed, who went around planting apple seeds, right, to produce apple trees in America. I think that was his story. I'll be honest, I don't remember. I don't know much, but there are actual heroes like Davy Crockett, who was a human, who he lived, but he was so he was larger than life that so many folk tales and stories were created by him, or created around him, So that's something to think about. So let's get back to drawing. I got maybe one more drawing in me before it's time to go. So let's remove these guys here. Let me get out my pen here. And let's say I want to do sorry, I'm looking around my cat's back. Makes me nervous sometimes around my equipment, And there he goes, jumping right on my computer. Okay. Just come sit on my chair there. Okay. Whoops. Okay. Am I over here now? Yes, I am. Delete. Okay. Let's do this again. Sorry. And let's make him kind of moving like, whoop, the neck would not be like that. We'll fix that. And I got this kind of generic style I use. And here he comes down again on the behind my laptop. Don't bend it. Okay. Maybe we'll have a character flying, right? And I'll have this arm kind of going up like that, and this arm coming in. It's this is a generic Superman pose, right? But it doesn't mean that I can't use the same pose. Whoa, too big. Okay. It doesn't mean I can't use that same pose to create someone flying. Now, one of the things that you'll notice about me when I draw is I'm constantly using the shapes, and then I go in and then I erase, right? And it's okay. I'll go and fix that. Now, I will say this, coming up in a couple of weeks, my summer job's going to start. So I won't be streaming anymore at 1 to 2 p.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays. I will still continue to stream. I just got to get a different day in. So check out my my Facebook page and over here. So my getintoon.net on Facebook, and my sorry. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Okay. This is my website, getintoon.net. And you can watch any of the videos under the video app, the video page, or you can any of the previous ones that I've done. And if you go on Facebook, if your kids watching, go use your parents. This is all kid-friendly stuff on there. It's all about my educational stuff on Facebook. I don't like that. So You can follow, or you can just hang out on my YouTube page. I will make an announcement on there too. So I think I'm going to make this guy that Dynamic Man character. Actually, you know what? Forget that. I know. Yeah, we'll keep it Dynamic Man. I liked his costume a lot. And I had these nice little... And I think he had short gloves, if I remember. Actually, no, he kind of had short gloves, but something kind of came up on the side there. His boots kind of were short boots as well. I think he had underwear, right? I got to go back to his picture here. That's my trash. That's my public domain here. Where is he? Dynamic Man. Sometimes you need to look. So yeah, and he had this big D on his belt buckle. So let's get that belt buckle in there. And it looked like he had this kind of, I don't know if it was one or two, but what his cape was attached to. So let's bring this down like so. And okay, maybe some action lines. All right. And now we can have him, here's some clouds to show that he's flying above everything. And maybe a little city. And I want to show you guys also a little trick. Now, if you understand perspective, we have what we call a horizon line, right? And we have what we call a vanishing point. So all things that look parallel go to the vanishing point. So if I make this little X so you can see it better, any line would kind of need to go right there, and I can cut it off. And I'm just going to draw to that vanishing point. So this one it wouldn't go to, but... So you guys see that there? And then I can make another one. Same vanishing point. You know, I can even do something maybe, yeah, I won't do any more than that. But here I'd put some windows maybe. And in the background, I might just kind of shade it in. So it's a little darker. You may not see any windows. Or what I would do is I would show windows over there as well and shade in these sides. What do you got there, Sesame? All right. All right. So, let me get this back here. So that's going to be it for today. I'm sorry about this stuff with my cat. If it caused any issues for you guys, next time I'll just let him meow and bother me. So, and it looks like now he's calming down. So tomorrow night at 8:30, that'll air both on YouTube here and on my Facebook page, Incredicon HV. I'm going to be interviewing Jay Piscopo, who is, again, a fabulous artist. You'll love to come in here. If you love public domain, like what I did today, if this was your first introduction to public domain, if you like kind of golden age and silver age superhero style comic books, excuse me, this is the guy you want to hear from and listen to. He's does beautiful work. We're going to show off some of his work. And Wednesday we're going to continue public domain. And I don't know if I'll have a bye, Alex. Thanks for tuning in. I don't know if I'll have a exact date when I'm going to start my my streaming when my new job starts on Wednesday, but just keep up to date with me and keep checking, because I do plan to do this throughout the summer, and still keep doing my interviews on Tuesday nights. So thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you guys on Wednesday, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow night too. All right, have a great day, guys.